we pop off, so there was this story I saw on the BBC yesterday, which just really surprised me. And when I went online, I found that a lot of people were really angry with this particular issue. So it has to do with some artifacts that are being brought back to Ghana as loans. So, and you will see the pictures of these artifacts. So the UK is sending some of Ghana's crown jewels back home, 150 years after looting them from the court of the Asante king. It's interesting because this is the war, the Sagrenti War of 1874. I actually interviewed Yaonochi Frimpong about this just on Sunday, because this year is the 150th anniversary of the war. So a gold peace pipe is among 32 items returning under long-term loan deals, the BBC can reveal. So another of the Victoria and Albert Museum is lending 17 pieces and 15 are from the British Museum. Ghana's chief negotiator, Ivor Ajimandua, said he hoped for a new sense of cultural cooperation after generations of anger. Some national museums in the UK are banned by law from permanently giving back contested items in their collections, and loan deals such as this are seen as a way to allow objects to return to their countries of origin. But some countries laying claim to the disputed artifacts fear that loans may be used to imply that they accept the UK's ownership of these items that were looted from Africa. So the items to be loaned, most of which were taken during the 19th century wars between the British and the Asante, include a sword of state, you will see them in the pictures there, and gold badges worn by officials charged with cleansing the soul of the king. So Mr. Hunt, a representative of the museum, said, museums which hold objects with origins in war and looting in military campaigns, we have a responsibility to the countries of origin to think about how we can share those more fairly today. So it's a 3-year loan agreement with an option to extend for a further 3 years. And these agreements are not with the Ghanaian government, but with Otumfuo Osei Tutu II, the current Asantehene, who attended the coronation of King Charles last year. The Asantehene still holds an influential ceremonial role, although his kingdom is now part of Ghana's modern democracy. And so these are you can see on your pictures on the screen, so many, these things were taken away 150 years ago. They're coming back, but as loans, and people are just wondering, how?
No, in the language,
but there's also a law in Ghana that they cannot return the stuff that.
In the language of transaction, somebody must give us the definition of the loan.
Yeah.
In the language of these transactions, or those who are good who are negotiators, I mean, they should be able to give us a definition, because I can't understand. If you unlawfully dispossess me of something that belongs to me, something dear and valuable to me, unlawfully you dispose. That's what stealing means.
Yeah.
You've stolen it. That's why the word looting has been used here. Yeah, out of the dominance, you dominated me. So when you were, after dominating me, you took away something that belonged to me, I cherish. Now, if out of conscience you think that this didn't belong to you and you have to restore it back to me, why should it be a loan? That's why, from a layman's perspective, I don't understand the law, these things very well. That's why somebody who understands the underpinnings of such negotiations and to accept the loaning back, that concept of the loaning.
Yes.
What it means, somebody must explain.
Yeah, we're getting the chief negotiator to speak about this.
And my great respect also for the Otumfuo, who respect the chief imam a lot. Chief imam has visited him, and because of the great respect I will have for him, I can't also accept that something that belongs to him, well, he is now the custodian
of things that his ancestors
belong to him, and I don't know whether he also accepts.
The chief negotiator of this particular agreement is on the line right now. Mr. Ivor Ajimandua, author, historian, and cultural person of culture, and linked very intimately to this particular deal, which has to do with artifacts coming back to Ghana. Mr. Ajimandua, Happy New Year. Good morning to you. A lot of Ghanaians have woken up today and they are scratching their heads to find out why looted items are coming back on loan to Ghana. Can you prevent us from scratching our heads with an explanation?
Well, we have to look at it in two different ways. Of course, those who do that are justified in their attitude to do that, because they are looking at the historical antecedents of this. Well, looted items taken violently to other places, and then if they are coming back, they should come back, of course, to the original owners in a mode that will be one of happiness. But then it also has to do with law, the laws of antiquity, with those who have possession of these objects and their national institutions. And nowadays, national institutions are supposed to operate within the laws of antiquity in their countries, whether in England or whether in Paris. So that is where the issue is. How do you then get into the middle of it without displeasing both sides? So we had to do some negotiation. And we've been talking about this issue in the last half a century. 50 years ago, we started talking about these same issues. The laws in the UK have not changed. And for us, it was also something else to stick to something that hasn't been working for half a century. Is there any leeway? Is there a way you can go around that law that will be of benefit to you in a way, even if it's on temporal basis? So that was the angle that we took. And we also look at the economic dimensions of this. We're going to have these objects for about 6 years. In the course of the 6 years, there is the expectation that the traffic to the Mencha Palace Museum will go up by maybe 70% more. Already about 80,000 people visit the museum a year. It's anticipated that this will go to maybe 200,000. It comes with revenue. The ironic situation of these objects, nationally and internationally, has to do with the fact that at the British Museum, they are not being exhibited. All these millions of objects from other parts of the world that we've taken are put in a central storage system. So they themselves are not making money out of these objects, at least with many of the objects. And they are not also giving these objects back to the owners. And to that extent, it's sometimes very difficult. So if there is a way you can tap into the situation and to make some economic sense out of it, which was what was one of the motivations for us to do that, then, well, fine. 6 years, you keep it for 6 years, and you can make something out of it.
Okay, so how many of these artifacts are returning to Asante Mencha Palace?
32, 17 from the Victoria and Albert, and 15 from the British Museum itself.
When are they touching down in Ghana?
I think sometime in April, May.
Okay. And so they will be on public display at the Mencha Palace, is that correct? Mencha Museum or Palace?
There will be an initial exhibition of these items, standalone items, and then later they will be part of the palace's new acquisition. So it will be permanently there.
How will we verify that they are not sending us copies of the artifacts and they are sending us the real deal? How do we verify?
No, I think we did the inspection, and there are specialists who do these, and these are authentic things coming.
Okay. When I shared this news with my wife, she was so furious. She said, when the thing comes to Ghana, we shouldn't send it back. And I've heard those sentiments from other people. What happens if after 6 years we decide, you know what, these things actually belong to us, we're not sending it back? What's the worst they can do to us?
The thing is, one, the loan is for a 3-year. It's a 3-year loan, renewable by another 3 years. It can go on and on and on. Mm-hmm. So there is room, once you have this, to also renegotiate. The terms could be different, and so there's so much that can come out of this. But it's one step at a time. You don't negotiate in anger, and you don't look at these. Of course, your wife is has every right to be angry.
And she's not even Ashanti, but she's just a proud Ghanaian who doesn't understand.
These things are seen, especially contemporary Africans. They see it as a sort of a composite, Pan-African, transnational situation, and not just for one ethnic group. And for me, that is the new meaning, the new way that people are looking at this. And it's very positive for the continent and for the diaspora. So, of course, she has every right to be angry about the situation. But then we also try and take one step at a time and see what you can make out of an unpleasant situation.
So is it a strict, so the items are coming to us, is there any money exchanging hands?
No, it doesn't. Sometimes when people hear of loan or lending, the imputation is that maybe some money is being paid, but there's nothing like that.
Okay.
It's just because by the antiquity law of UK, they claim ownership of it. If they're giving it out, it's not total the ascension. That is, they are not permanently removing this. So they're giving it to you as a loan. So if it's permanent or total reparation, then you have it for forever.
Right.
But this is not the case.
So by British law, these artifacts looted from Ghana or Gold Coast or whatever it was called back then, which is now Ghana, 150 years ago, they now belong to the British government. Is that correct?
Yes, and especially the national, the state museums, the national museums were the big ones. They've always been the big ones. The British Museum is 283 years old. The Victoria is getting to a century and a half years old. So these are big museums, and they have state treasuries in there, including the looted treasuries.
Right.
And there are laws governing these institutions passed by the House of Commons, agreed to by the House of Lords. So to change these laws, it will take time, and it will have to go through so many processes.
Right.
And so that is what makes it difficult. So if you want to wait for these laws to be changed, and people have been talking about the change of these laws close to 70 years.
It will take time.
But if there is a leeway in between when these laws will change and now, and you can make some economic sense out of it, possibly you can look at that option.
Right. So 32 of these items are coming back from the UK. Is this all that they have, or there's more?
There's more.
How many more do they have?
There is more, but the issue about objects and their histories are that not every object that you see at the British Museum was also looted. There were exchanges of gifts, especially between the Asante Kingdom in 1817 and the British trade journalist and naturalist T.E. Bodish.
Right.
So he presented Bodish with 14 items, personal items to keep. Remember me when you get to your country. And so Bodish later on sort of gave these to the British Museum. So these were not looted items or objects. And there were exchanges between Queen Victoria also. Some items were brought to Kumasi, some items were sent from Kumasi to Queen Victoria. These are part of the royal collection.
Right.
At the Windsor Castle.
Couple of questions, then I can let you go. A friend of mine on one of my school platforms is arguing that spoils of war are not regarded as robbery. Is that correct?
That's what?
That these artifacts could be regarded as spoils of war, and so you cannot say that they were stolen. Is that correct? It
depends on the interpretation that will be given. I mean, the legalities of these could extend to many frontiers. But then these were taken, that they were taken from the palace was registered, and the soldiers who entered. The interesting thing about the British is they like to write.
They record everything.
Reporting from the looting, from the day they got to Kumasi, even the time they got to Kumasi, 5:30 on the February the 4th, almost 150 years ago, to whatever happened on hourly basis were put down. And these were laws that were later given to the British archives. So there were details as to what happened. And they themselves admitted to looting. Some of the soldiers got arrested while in Kumasi because they got some of the precious metals and then hid them before they even got to Kumasi. So it depends on what interpretation one gives to whether they were looted. But the general principle is these were looted items.
Okay. Reverend Dr. Lawrence Tete has a question for you, Mr. Ajimanduya.
What I want to ask is, how can we negotiate to have a longer stay of this thing that have been taken from him, because I think that there's been selective justice by the British, and sometimes they talk about rights of people, but when it comes to issues like this, sometimes the decisions they take doesn't favor the African community that much. So how can we extend this negotiation? I know you are at the forefront of it, to make sure we get this property of ours longer in our community than just the loan.
Yes, I think you are right, and that is what we're trying to look at. The directors of the British Museum, the Victoria and Albert Museum, and even the Wallace Collection will all be coming to Kumasi sometime in April to participate in some of these commemorations. The idea is to go beyond just these objects and to look at a bigger cultural and cooperation framework. Because there are other objects also at the Wallace Collection in London. And then what is it that can be done jointly? And as you rightly said, what do we do to ensure that these items will stay beyond the success that for now we've agreed to? And what other things can we do jointly in the global cultural atmosphere that we have today? So I think we gradually get to some of these very critical issues.
So just to be sure, so now it appears that these things are now the property of the British government and they are loaning it to us, and the loans can be extended after every 3 years. Is that correct?
After every 3 years, yes. So then you have a leeway, provided you are able to. Okay, we're still interested, want to keep it for it. The law allows that, at least the terms of the agreement allows that. So for me, that is the first step. After success, probably you could even go beyond success.
Beyond that, okay.
And then we talk about these issues as we get along.
Do they have any control on how we will display them here in Ghana?
No, they wouldn't. They came here, did the assessment, because they also wanted to be sure that the facilities that will absorb these objects were facilities of the standard type. And so everything was agreed upon. They were very happy with what they saw in terms of the cases, because you also need to look at the temperature of these areas, the glass cases, the thickness or otherwise of these, so that the objects will breathe and then will be comfortable in the cases that they are. All these were assessed. The security system were looked at. Even the fire alarm systems, all these were taken into consideration to ensure that even art thieves who are very specialized in breaking into museums. The British Museum suffered from this not very long ago. Notwithstanding all the security architecture that it has, that shows you the extent to which some of these sophisticated specializing.
Well, finally, have you actually seen these pieces yourself with your naked eyes?
No, I did. When we were discussing it, when we were doing the selection, we were all in the room, the big room where these items were, and we did the selection, bearing in mind the historical antecedents and also the transition period that these objects traveled to.
How did you feel knowing that these things were used by human beings who have long gone into eternity, 150 years ago, Sovereignty War people? I mean, how did you feel?
It was very moving, and anybody who's been there, including some Nigerians who went to see the bidding process, will tell you how moving that could be. But then there is something also to say for these people, even as they looted these items, the order and the preservation methods which ensure that these objects have been able to live for that long. They are so meticulously done that they are well catalogued, and every drawer has its own object, its own history, its own preservation properties, and they are looked after very well. So there is something to say for the preservation of these as well, and I think we should also look at that. Sometimes be a bit kind to or charitable to what it was.
All I can say is gold is a very powerful metal. It does not rust. They still look good 150 years after, you know.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I thank you for the education and the information, and hopefully more and more Ghanaians and Africans will scratch less and less their heads over this particular loan agreement, Mr.
Perhaps your wife will be more comfortable now.
Yes, I'll go and check her head to see whether she stopped scratching. Thank you.